Alright, so we're gonna make a new app. What's up, crew? Manuel and Josh just did their little podcast here that you can find through the forum on the podcast episode section of the bubble.io site, or wherever you want to find it. Like, it's really an amazing listen, and you should give it a try if you're planning on using Bubble for your apps. And today we're going to talk about today they talked about sort of the responsive editor and how the layouts are going to change, and how they're trying to make it a little bit more accessible to everybody. So we're going to do, but they also promised that it would be backwards compatible, and I've been waiting to do sort of a responsive layout video for a while, and I guess it starts today. Because, oh no. I think I just closed it. Oh, I'm really bad at this. Hang on a second. I should stop doing this live. Am I still streaming? That's the question. Or did it just hop off? Oh, we're still live. Sweet. Okay. Let's see if we can pull up the data here. I might download this and sort of clip it, because this is what most live stuff is. Anyways, they're talking about the responsive editor, and the responsive editor is a sticking point for a lot of bubblers because it's something that you have to learn and get used to. We're going to start with a blank page here, so let's go ahead and do that, and then let's close the assistant, and I'm at the exact same spot as usual where you are. So when you start this, you can give it a background color just to see what you're doing, and then if you go to responsive tab, technically you should be able to view your app in different modes here, because the preset page width is not fixed, and it is responsive, and that is the situation with a lot, I would say most bubble elements can be responsive. So looking at modern web layouts in this article here, link in the description by Una Kravitz, there's a few things, and Codables had asked, is there the intent of adding flexbox style responsiveness here to make things easier on us? Well, my opinion is it already exists to a certain extent. Flexbox is sort of a setup. Oops, don't save. I don't even know if I'm actually streaming right now. Let's go to my channel and see. I started it and now I can't find it again, so I just want to make sure that I'm not doing all of this, for no reason. Am I live? Where's my video? I need to restart this. Okay, it says live now. Can I go to it? Can I watch it? Okay. Okay, sorry. We're gonna restart. I'm gonna put a little thing in the comments. Start at 3 minutes or whatever, because there was a lot of messing about. Anyways, the founders released a podcast, is what I'm saying, and they're talking about the responsive engine and how there's gonna be changes to it, which is basically why I was waiting on, publishing an in-depth responsive video. And this channel is just me sort of putting some stuff out there and trying to show you what I've learned over time on Bubble, how to create apps and stuff. If you're new to the channel, check out some of the other videos. They'll be a little bit more organized than this one, I think. But this one is basically going to be the basics of, can Bubble do what CSS does? So here we have an article by Una Kravitz, who's talking about the different, 10 different ways that you can set up your layouts for modern CSS using the Flexbox CSS framework. And Codables had asked on the actual on the monthly update, is Flexbox technology going to be used in the future? I think that was last month, and this was published somewhere. So I took a look at it and I thought this was really interesting. This is live, so this is a challenge for me, and I want to see how and if I know how to replicate these different layouts. And that's what we're going to be testing out today. Okay, so there's 10 of them, link in the description, go check them out if you want, and then you can skip to the different ones in the different parts of the video. If I get through all of them, super. And the first one is the one that I've actually had the most trouble with, because centering things horizontally is not difficult. Centering things vertically is a little bit more difficult because of the way that Bubble lays out their stuff. Okay, so here, if you grab a group, and this is true of most elements, so I'm just going to give this one a background style. Basically, if I center it horizontally and I make it fixed width, it's always going to stay the same, and the page will actually move and resize itself, but the element itself is going to try to stay the same width. And that's not very responsive, and that's not very modern. So we're going to try to do this exact thing right here, where we straight out of the box just uncheck visible on fixed width, and we're going to center it horizontally. We're going to go to the responsive tab. We're going to make sure this is centered and not aligned to right or left. And we've basically got our first piece of CSS exactly the same. Yep. So it's trying to keep the margins here for as long as it can until it reaches until this element reaches the minimum width, and then it'll start collapsing the actual margins around the element. And that's how the Bubble responsive engine works. And we've pretty much got this first one going here. The one for center vertically is a little bit more difficult because of the way it's drawn, and I'm going to try to explain this to you using my element inspector right here. Can I please put this on the right? How did I do that last time? Dr. Right. Okay, so as you can see the layout here that Bubble builds, I think it builds it using JavaScript or jQuery. And the reason I think that is because when you resize stuff, it has the same sort of movement that you see when you write code to resize stuff using jQuery in real time. So that's why what I'm assuming is it recalculates absolute widths and heights and positions, lefts and rights, to actually mimic sort of a flexbox model, right? And it has its limitations, of course, and it has its difficulties, but once you learn how to use it, you should be able to do most things. Now, this one, horizontally, is not really possible. I've tried it a bunch of times, but you get a page here, and then in the page you get a line, and this line is supposed to represent the padding from the top, right? Plus your element. So, and then you have your R box, which is your left and right, and then inside of that you have the actual element itself. So as you saw, you have all of your padding on top, and then your left and your right, and then the actual element. And that's why if I try to center this vertically inside of its parent element, this is its parent element, which takes up exactly, I think, the same height and the same width as it. And so if I center it, it's already centered, and that's why it's incredibly difficult to center things vertically in Bubble. So what they do have is a workaround for that. If I grab the UI builder and I shut this and I take the element called pop-up, that's exactly what they're trying to do with that natively. So again, we're going to make sure it's not fixed width. We're going to add a minimum width to 60, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But first, here's my pop-up. No, I have to show it first. So let's go with a button to show the pop-up. Or even better, we're going to go condition. When a condition is true in the workflow tab here, we're going to say every time this page is loaded. No, page is loaded. I think it's just page is loaded. Is yes. We're going to go element actions show, and then we're going to show pop-up. And if we hit preview here, it should load, and then it should show the pop-up. There it is. And if I go down, it's going to stay relatively centered on the amount of screen real estate I have. It's not perfect, but you notice that it's moving up and down here to try to stay centered on the screen as much as possible. Okay, so that's the closest that we can get to it. And if it gets cut off here, it doesn't have any minimum vertical width, but it will be scrollable if there's additional content. And the pop-up will actually scroll without the page scrolling, which is really nice. Okay, so this is the first one done. Let's go into the second one. And this is a deconstructed pancake flex, grow, shrink, and base width, which is important because you want a base width, and you don't necessarily want it expanding larger than that. Okay, so I'm just going to recreate this exact same layout. So let's go here and go design. Let's get rid of this. Let's grab a group. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is just use the page as the reference group. I think. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm just doing this based on, you know, my current knowledge at the time of this video, which is roughly 3 years of bubbling. I joined in late 2016. We're in 2020, so it's going to be 4 years this year. Wow, I've been at it for a while. Okay, so let's actually group all of these so I can center them directly to the page, and let's take a look at how they react here. Okay, so give them 3 different colors just so we can see what's going on. Why would they give me the same color? And then we're going to go red. Okay, and in the responsive tab, you notice the red is down here. Here's the blue. Here's the other blue. And what's the difference? They're all there, and then when it collapses, they go 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. The difference is base width. It seems to be fixed, right? So if we just do that, and we actually click on this, and we either fix width here in the bubble editor, in the responsive engine, or in the bubble editor itself, it's the same thing. We'll just add fixed width to all of these and see what happens. There it is, sort of, and this is actually the same. Aside from this being aligned to the left here, it's not aligned to the left, it's just that it's max width, which is fixed, and so they're expanding the margins to make up for it. And then as soon as we can, we allow this one to pop up. Okay, so that's basically the same structure, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then 1, 2, 3. Now, it's not exactly the same because here you have 1 and 2 who pop off a little bit later. And in our case here, this one has to pop down because there's no more room for the margins, and this one sticks to the right here instead of the entire thing, you know, sort of compressing because this one popped down. So in order to fix that, I think I would do something like this, and I would group these two into their own groups. Nope, I can't do that. Did we find one that I can't do? Perhaps let's ungroup these for starters. Then, yes, I've always had trouble with threes working perfectly, and the workaround obviously is you need to give it the same set of margins on top so that when it does snap down, it will inherit this sort of 26 pixels on the top and keep it the same as these margins. So that's 23, 24, okay, it doesn't really matter. And as it pops down, it'll maintain an extra layer of margins here. Okay. And the other thing I would do is not make this fixed width, and we have this sort of deconstructed pancake, except I think it's the next one, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's this one here. Same thing, but it's wider. For this one to actually work, you would need to calculate the width of the actual group and give it a max width. Yep. So what I would do is I would grab this one and I would say, here's your max width. And you don't, you stay at fixed width. And I would make sure all 3 of them sort of fit in there. So that's the best I can do for the second one. The third one we did by letting the bottom one sort of expand and by removing the fixed width off the bottom one. Now all of these, you'll notice actually expand a little bit wider. So we're gonna uncheck fixed width. This one and see what happens. Okay, and there you go. It's a little bit nicer, and here's your expansion. All right, almost like flexbox. Very, very close to flexbox. I think that's what the founders had in mind when they constructed the responsive engine, is to make it work like this. And keep in mind they started building this in 2012, and I don't even know if flexbox was common back then. So, anyways, min-max, here you have a min of 150 and a max of 25% of the parent group, it would seem. We can't do max in percentage of the parent group. We can do a min width that's exactly that's in percentage, and a max width as well in percentage. So I can show you how that works and create this. This one takes up the rest of the remaining space. Easy peasy, let's do that. Okay, so in this case we have 2. Let's grab this one. Let's start here. Okay, and I want my minimum width on this one to be like 150. Okay, so this is the absolute minimum I want. The absolute minimum that I can get is actually 99%. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to drag this one until it touches the left here, until this one touches the right here. And then this one is going to have a minimum width of 20%, just to make sure that it collapses in and take up the rest of the space. And then when it ultimately gets to this position, it snaps down. Okay, another thing that we can do to make sure that it doesn't snap down, okay, here it's centered. Well, here our device is a little bit too small. I don't think there are many devices at 530 pixels, if any, that I'm aware of. And we want to remove max width here. Okay, that doesn't matter, but we can also collapse, right? So if this group was contained by another group and I wanted to get rid of the margins at a specific distance, I can do that. So I'll grab this group, and this group will be the same width of the page. Again, this is the background group, so we're going to make it white. And then we have the second group, which is like a sort of a holder group, and we're going to remove this, and we're going to make a background color of red. And then all of a sudden, when we get to here, we can say, hey, you red, the display is too small now, so we're going to need you to collapse into here. And you can say collapse when the page width is smaller than, and we're going to pick 550, why not? And as you can see, under 550, the red group collapses to take up all of the room, and only on a very small device, less than 320. I don't think they make devices less than 320 in relative pixels. It'll pop down here. So this should be safe for most devices. And then as you expand, it sort of takes up more of a margin. And we've successfully completed, what is that, 3? You're gonna have to hurry up a little bit here. That's 3. 4. So we got grid template rows. I did actually read all of it before I started this, but I should have. The footer sticks to the bottom, the header sticks to the top, and the main takes up the rest of the room. This is made really, really easy by Bubble because we have access to a tool called floating group. And so we're going to pick that floating group, with this being our top and then this being our bottom one. Let's start with the top one. Let's remove the style and let's go background style flat color. It's white, and we're going to say float to the top. So what Bubble's going to do is it's going to grab the top here, 0 pixels. It's going to measure this distance, which right now is 88, but we want it at 0. And it's going to, no matter where the screen is, it's going to calculate it back to 0. So if we go responsive, you'll see it always stays on top, even if we're scrolling down. So I'm scrolling down here, but this on our preview mode will always stay 0 pixels from the top of my viewport of my I guess monitor of my browser screen, right? And then this one, we want to float on the bottom. So let's grab the page and let's go actually a height of 1. Then let's just grab this, and as soon as we start moving it, take up all of the room until it reaches the end last element. And this is it right here. Let's remove the style. Let's go background style flat color. Let's make that one blue. And instead of floating to top, because we don't want it calculating all of these pixels and making it float that way, because it won't show up on most browsers unless you have a very, very long screen, a portrait-oriented 4K screen, maybe something like that, whatever. We're going to say you're going to float from the bottom, and now Bubble is going to calculate the distance between the bottom of your page as you're drawing it and the bottom of your element. And right now it's 0, and it's going to duplicate this element in your preview from the bottom of your viewport at those pixels, so in our case 0. Alright, so let's refresh. Here it is. We still have pop-up, but here's the top. Then you have your main here, and you have your bottom, and you'll notice here I'm scrolling, which is not super visible, but the top and the middle stay the same, right? So let's just put in a button, these buttons. Let's put in a text here, and as soon as we see edit me, we know that we've scrolled pretty much to the bottom of our page, which is, you know, quite high. It's 2200 pixels. So let's refresh the page here, and here's our pop-up, and as we're scrolling, there's our text right here. Okay, so that's that one. We're done 4, let's go 5. Classic Holy Grail layout. Oh man, this one is fun, right? And we have the same thing with the floating groups for the Holy Grail, so we're just gonna work off that. Here's our floating group, down Control, drag it down so we can copy it. Here's our left side, let's go to the top, and I can decide place color on it. You'll be able to see a little bit more clearly. I can decide whether it sits over the header, which is unlikely, or I can set it to back, just like most by, say, you can float to the top and the left. And there it is, top and left. And then you can grab this one and say you're gonna, same thing, the top instead of the left, you're gonna go to the right. Let's preview that. And we should have the very same thing, the holy grail of all responsive UI design. And here it is. It's your floating group. Let's remove actually the element inspector so we can have a little bit more of a view here, right? And here's our floating groups, and they're responsive as well, which is nice. But we can also control, like we did in the past examples, sort of their minimum width. I don't want it smaller than 99. I don't want it larger than, oops, I don't want it larger than 125% of its current width, which is 180. And you can do the math as you see fit. As you're building out your setup, make sure that everything works the way that you want it to. Okay, so now we have this here, this setup, and we're going to go find our text again, and there you are. Okay, so that's that setup, the Holy Grail. Next, what do we have? Oh, what is this? Okay. Right, so I guess you would use this for sort of a Gantt chart. You have 12 span grid. EU, 12 column of each, 1 FR. Okay, we're modifying 1/5. Okay, this you can't do in Bubble. You have to calculate in relative pixels your, you can get the expansion, but you can't get the starting and ending position. You have to manually calculate them based on the width of your page because everything's in percentages. So if I were to build something similar to this, let me just get these out of the way. We have our top one, which will always be at 100%. And then we're going to grab another group here and say, hey, in your columns, if I wanted to, I can go step 12. No, that's not what I want. If it's pixels and my width is 1200, then I would have to go step 100 here. And you're basically just doing math. Let's not include the gutters. And then here's my column. And I want it to snap now. I want it to snap to edges and grid, or just grid. And now I can snap it to here and make sure that it's at the right column width, right? And it'll stay in percentage relative to that, or I can make sure it stays 100 pixels from the left, or I can make sure it stays 100 pixels from the right, or whatever is required for my current setup, right? Let's remove the style. Let's go background just so you guys can see what's going on. I'll give you a quick preview of this. But yeah, definitely we can't do as a strict column. We have to calculate the width of our page and then divide whatever we need by that. And go preview. And here's our little column. I'm going to remove that. It's starting to get annoying. And it's very similar here to what you've seen, except it doesn't interact the exact same way because of the max and mins. You're going to have to play with what you're able to do with Bubble. So this one's a little bit tougher, but you can definitely have a 12 column setup, and you can definitely place your things exactly the way you want them visually, which I would argue is actually just as useful as using these fractions that you'd get to get a repeat. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. So this, just the way you set it up, this you would set up something similar, but visually, and it would work sort of the same way. Here, yeah, so if I aligned them left, it would actually work the exact same way. Moving on, we have 0 RAM, repeat, auto, min, max. Yeah, this one's tough. Yeah, I can do this, but it's going to be tough. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be the exact same one. Okay, so let's do it. We have 12 columns. So let's maintain our margins here. Let's go. What's 12? Divided by 4 is 3, but then I don't get any margins. So let's actually go step. And I would have to divide stuff, which I don't feel like doing. So I'm just going to do it in relative size. Inside of a group, I'm going to make it square. I'm going to make this at 200. And I'm going to make this at 200. And then I'm going to go 1, 2. We're going to go 15 on our grid, so we can just snap to here, and then control snap to here. It doesn't snap when I have multiple elements, so I have to realign them. Let's group these in a group, and then let's center this horizontally, and then let's see what happens. Here's 4. Here's 1 on the bottom. Okay, but it did not stay small. This one, min-max, it has a max on the base, and the minimum is the one that causes it to snap down. So arguably, I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so its max is 150 pixels. So, excuse me. In my case, we're gonna do max of pretty much the same thing, but it's gonna be max of 200 pixels, and then we're gonna align this one or them left. Yeah, not exactly, eh? And if we keep them line center, yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here. Max 100, max 100, max 100, max 100. Why aren't these margins behaving? Are they all the same? They're no longer the same, that's why. I see my snapping threw it off a little bit, so let's just go like this, and now it should behave exactly the same way as in the video, because they all have 15 margins, 15 pixel margins. I must have made a mistake earlier that I didn't catch. Right, this, yep. Okay, and all we're missing is the top margin, so let's go like that. There you go, same layout, except this one aligns left, correct? Yeah, not exactly, eh? What's going on? 66, 66, all of them? You centered. Max widths. Centered. Okay, so it works like this. It does not work when they're not all aligned left, maybe? Like I said, I'm not exactly sure. Okay, that's most of it. The issue is this one falls out of sync with the other 3, and it's going to be quite ugly that way. So this layout you can fake by saying your last guy is not a max width, and your last guy sort of takes up all of the room, and then you can put a group inside of the last guy that has a max width. I'm not exactly sure how I would do that. Okay, let's try just a little bit of a different approach here and see if it works. Let's start it at the place where it breaks and see if that happens. 10, 15, and 15, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then you got 18 here, whereas you got 15 here. Okay, so now all of my margins are aligned, and this grid is hurting my eyes, so I'm going to go background color page. Is going to change to, you know, something a little bit more manageable. Red versus green was sort of hurting. Alright, let's see what we get here. It's both of them snapping out, and oh right, so what I would need to do is center this horizontally, and I would need to group this into a group, and we're gonna say you can actually expand to take up this much room because these are the margins that I actually want, and then we're gonna expand this in 4100, which means basically all the time. Okay, and this one we can say wrap to the previous line, page is stretched, and then we just got to make sure that we actually have our margins on the left hand side here. We need it on the right, nope. And then you got the same max width as the rest of them. There you go. Close, not exact, close. Okay, so if you want to lay out like that, you play around with it, make it work depending on what you need. I have had to use workarounds because sometimes it just doesn't want to do exactly what I want, but there's always a way to find something similar. Okay, what's this? Repeat, auto min max. I didn't even read this far yet. Same idea. Okay, justify content and space between. Show me. No, you can't do this. You can't link heights in Bubble. So this one, we're going to toss it out the window right away. You have to make sure that your text heights are all the same. Otherwise, they won't stretch together. One of them will stretch, and then the other ones won't stretch with it. So this is definitely a feature that's missing from Bubble, and that real coders can do that we aren't able to, unfortunately, to my knowledge. Clamping style, what is this? You're setting width using clamp, absolute min, max size, and actual size with values that can look like. Yep, we could do this. Yep, this is just min max. So we could do something like this. We can give this one a background color. Is there one with the background color here? Warning. And then we do something like, here's my text. What did it look like? So we said no way. Title, a box that stretches, right? And then text that stretches. And that's exactly how you would build it out. Here's your box that stretches. Here's your margin, center horizontally. You make sure that this has, you pick a 20 because then you always control your element from the closest to the page as you can get. So if this one needs to be a certain size, you'll control its parent, not it, because it's too far away from the page to make sense to control. And also, if you put, as you're building out, once you put other children inside of the group that you're controlling, they'll behave the same way as this group right here that you're building out, and that's sort of what you want. So let's grab an H, like a big heading, and then let's copy, drag that down, grab this and go something small text, just some text, and then some super extra lorem, so we can see it go all the way. And you'll notice, I think right out of the box, it will behave right. Except this one's fixed width still, or max width, because we left that on from last time. With no max width, it'll stretch the exact same way. And then this is what I meant by you add a max width here, 100, you add a minimum width, let's say 80, and then you go responsive, and that's how it's going to work out for you. So in our case, I don't know if you remember, let's add a little bit more of a max width, like 150, so we can see the changes. But that's as wide as it'll get, and this is getting narrower and narrower. So since the collapse into this guy, make sure that this guy is 20, and these are the margins that we're going to be maintaining, because it's smaller than 20. And we keep our margins at its very smallest, and it expands properly like this. So that's decent, right? Decent, right? Well, this site, the videos keep collapsing, stretching back out. But yeah, this is definitely the text. Okay, so in our case, text is going out and coming back in. It's not as short as it gets, because as we get wider, this text actually pulls up a little bit, so we actually have access to that option as well. Put this here. We can go shrink the element height if the text gets shorter, and it does get shorter if this becomes significantly longer. It will get shorter. So let's take a look. Here it is. We can't see the bottom here, but you'll notice it gets shorter as the text expands out. Exactly the same way as the clamp, which interestingly is saying there's less browser support for the clamp. I'm not sure if I understood it correctly, because I've never used clamp. Responsive typography, for instance, font headline would always stay clamped between 1.5 and 3 REM, right? So you're saying this font size is changing? Is that what you're saying? I don't think so. It's definitely not changing. Nope, it's not changing. The width is changing, but the font size isn't. But you can change it. That would really good. That would be really good. Except it's disproportionate. It's usually when you're doing responsive text for mobile, you'll make relatively bigger than text for desktop for some reason. Mobile text seems to always be bigger because of the layout. It makes more sense. It is more readable, obviously, but just because of the amount of content that you display on a mobile screen, I find bigger text looks bigger and works better. All right. In respect to aspect ratio, okay, these are workarounds that you can use in Bubble, but now you're really getting into the workaround scene. There's a few elements that have aspect ratio, that maintain aspect ratio. And the ones out of the box, obviously, that you think of are image, because that's the one you're going to use. And the other one is the HTML element, which allows you to put in custom HTML. So let me show you sort of what that looks like. And Bubble also gives us a really important tool in the form of ImageX services, which deliver images either processed or indexed so that it gets delivered faster. So let's upload a static image here. And here's our aspect ratio, right? And we don't want to warp that or shift that, so we're just going to bring it up a little bit, and then we're going to hold down Shift on PC, and I assume Mac as well, and to maintain the aspect ratio, and drag it out here. Then replace this here, and then all we need to do is check keep element proportions. This page is resized, and it'll do just that. Actually, it'll keep the element proportions, and you'll notice the picture is bigger. And now as the parent element shrinks, the actual image itself shrinks in its entirety. I think we need a little bit more viewport here so that I can show you exactly what's happening. But here's the size of the image, and here it is actually physically shrinking to fit smaller devices by maintaining its aspect ratio. Cool. That's how it works. That's what they showed us. And the other element that I'm aware of that you could do that with is HTML. And this way you could put in whatever, an HTML5 video player, or whatever you want in here, make it scrollable, make an iframe. As long as you keep element proportions, this page is resized, it'll work the exact same way. And you can even use this behind another element to fake aspect ratio responsiveness. I really have to get rid of this pop-up, it's annoying me. But yeah, same thing. As it gets thinner, the HTML element gets smaller because it maintains its aspect ratio. Make sense? Is that 10? Yes, that's 10. Conclusion, guys. So I know it's been a while since I posted, and I really wanted to do something for you guys. And then here it was. 10 CSS things, and out of the 10 of them, only one of them could we not do at all. And one or two of them gave us a little bit of trouble, but I'm sure if you play around with them, you'll be able to find some workaround that suits your design. So I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please do let me know what you want to see in the future, because I'll be starting to post pretty regularly again. My life's been a hailstorm lately, and everything's just starting to calm down and should be good in the next couple of days. So yeah, welcome back, crew, and